Welcome back to another torch review. I have the Sofirn SF36 in for testing. This was sent in via the company for a review. So we'll just look through the included items. You have two O-rings and a fairly decent quality wrist strap, though it doesn't have a central adjuster, and there is a micro USB charger included. This one is for a single cell, but you can use other types of cells with it as well. The charging rate is listed as 0.75 of an amp, but we'll do some tests on that later on. Now, looking at the body, it's quite a compact sized torch for a 18650, one of the smaller ones that I've used, and it has a glossy finish, or near to glossy finish, that is, compared to some torches, but it feels very well made actually. I'm quite surprised at the price point, definitely better than average. You also have the single switch on the base with a thick silicone covering. Switch feels good on this, nice firm action. Just unscrew the base and take off the protector for the battery. This is rated to 2800 milliamps an hour, but I'm going to run a capacity test on that because I suspect it's a bit lower. As you can see, the body is quite thick, at least at the base, but you can unscrew the head section as well. Threads are good on this, they are lightly greased. So we have two springs, top and bottom, so that means that you'll be able to use other cells like unprotected 18650s like the LG one I have here. Screw that back up. Now, operation on this is very straightforward. Single on off, click, and then half press to cycle through the power modes, and there are 4 power modes with this, and it also has a mode memory. So once you switch it off, it will remember the last mode that you're on, and that's pretty important for a torch because you don't want it to come on the highest power level. If you give a quick double press, you go into the strobe mode. So the memory won't remember the strobe, but all the other settings. You'll notice there's quite a lot of grooves, thick grooves there to help dissipate the heat. Stainless steel bezel at the top, and it's granulated. The LED is an XPL2V6, very slightly off center on my sample, but not enough to cause any concerns. Very stable base or tail stand. And due to the uneven bezel, if you have the torch on, head down, you'll see that you've left it on. Useful feature to have. As far as the overall fit, finish and feel, nice lot of grip on this, a lot of knurling. I'm pretty happy with it overall. Just skim through the user manual quickly. You can see the power outputs, lowest at 8. And then let's just go through the operation. Very standard and straightforward stuff. But the manual is reasonably well laid out. Now we're going to do some tests on the charger now just to see what the story is with that, because they can vary in quality. We're looking for a decent termination. So the charge speeds were a little bit above the quoted spec, about 830 milliamps, and the termination was a 4.177, which is pretty good, just under the 4.2, but the capacity came out at 2600 or just under, which is what I expected. Prefer if they put the accurate measurement on that. It didn't have any problems with the water resistance test either. Now I'm going straight into the beam shots. These are the same beam shots that I take for all of the torches, or at least the standard ones, so you'll be able to see the spread and pattern, see how they compare to each other. As far as the output goes, it looks pretty comparable to other torches at the top end. Bit of range and spread on this model. It's a mixed beam, so a sort of general purpose beam I would call it. So rather than a focused beam or a floody beam, it's in between. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because for a general purpose torch, that would probably be what people would be looking for, rather than a long range torch or a huge floodlight effect. Just comparing it to the Rofis TR20, purely because I use this torch frequently. And this has extra features compared to the SF36, but that's not necessarily relevant for everyone. But you'll be able to see that the output is pretty similar between the two. Notice that the tint is different. This is cooler on the Rofis, and I switch between the two at the highest power level. Just another point to note is the Rofis has a shallower reflector, so it gives a slightly wider beam spread, but they are quite similar in terms of the overall output. Quite like the tint on this, have to say it's a bit warmer, quite pleasing, and this will show you the beam pattern. This is more diffused in person because the camera can't cope with the dynamic range. This shot will give you perhaps a better idea. So you do have the hotspot fairly well diffused, but it spreads out onto the telephoto tests. Same location as the other tests that I do. So you've got a fairly decent range off of this torch. I really don't think anyone's going to be unhappy with the power output. Quick roof shot and moving over to the tree. Not a huge difference between some of these torches, but on the lowest output we are about 8 lumens, so they say, and perhaps would have liked a moonlight mode, an extra power level in there. That's perhaps nitpicking a bit, but it would be nice. And onto the strobe. This has the faster and slightly slower speed combined, so that usually does a pretty good job if you wanted to annoy someone that was coming at you for self-defense. The multi-level strobe flashing seems to work quite well. Shots down the side of the house now. The spacing is okay on this. I don't have any problems with it. It makes sense. It's quite a logical step through the power levels. The camera actually kicks down a bit at the top power because it's so bright. And just a quick comparison with the TR20. Should be able to see slightly wider beam pattern on this. But when I take it up to the top power setting, I'd say it's slightly brighter overall, but there isn't much difference between them. Wouldn't be significant in my view. Coming to a few conclusions with the SF36, this is really aimed as a general purpose torch, affordable with an inclusive package. So what I'm looking for really is something which is well built, does the job, decent power output and good spacing on the modes, and it pretty much does all of that. I don't have any serious complaints with the torch. A couple of small points for me: would like to have had a moonlight mode included. That would have rounded it off, made it an even stronger offering, and the LED was just a touch off of the ideal position. That's just a small point to note, but very nice build quality on this. You get a charger which is capable of providing a decent charge and also a good capacity battery too, and I'm pretty happy enough with the output. Quite a nice tint on this one as well, so certainly worth looking at for an affordable torch which isn't compromising on the quality. So thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe, where I'll be doing some more torch reviews in future videos.